G'day, I'm Garry Pye. In this video, I want to break down an animation that I created using my new Freebone octopus character. This is not going to be a tutorial, a step-by-step guide to tell you how to animate. But what I am going to do is to talk about the tools and features of Cartoon Animator 5 that I used to create this animation. If I was to create that animation in the traditional sense, hand-drawn, frame by frame, regardless of the fact that it's only a short clip, that would take a lot of skill and a lot of man hours, and I just don't have the skill to do that. To try and animate a character with multiple limbs like that, I don't have it. But with Cartoon Animator, I was able to create that entire animation in one day. That includes the design of the character, coloring, the build, the rigging, the setup for all the facial puppetry, as well as the final animation. I did it all in a day. And the greatest thing is the animation of the actual body took minutes, thanks to Cartoon Animator 5's new motion pilot feature, which we'll get to. So what I'm going to do is we're going to break down everything in this cartoon and just tell you about it to give you an idea of how it was made. Because I knew this character was going to be a Freebone character and not a standard human bone template, the first thing I did was to just block out all of the different shapes that would make up my actor to make sure they could all link correctly and be layered properly. From there, it was a matter of completing the design of the character and then start setting up the layers so that all the bones in the face and the body could link to all the corresponding sprites that make up those parts. You'll see, because this is a Freebone character, when we go into the RL bone folder, the main bone here is the root bone, from which all other bones will connect so that when you move your character around, the root bone is the anchor point. This character also has a 360 head, so I needed to set up all of the different face parts in the RL bone head folder that will control the facial puppetry. And then finally, in the RL image folder, we have all of the sprites that make up all of the parts of our character. So once my character was designed and rigged, I sent it over to Cartoon Animator, where I was able to set up my 360 head motion and my facial puppetry and color management. I've got other videos showing you how I did that, so I'm not going to cover that here. But what I am going to cover here, what I really want to focus on, is Cartoon Animator 5's latest feature that's just come out called Motion Pilot. This is a new feature that's included in the free upgrade to Cartoon Animator 5.2, and it is amazing. You hear the phrase game changer thrown around a lot. I'm telling you, Motion Pilot is a game changer, because now Motion Pilot takes away a lot of the tedious keyframing that we had to do with bones before. If you want to get your characters moving smoothly and animating naturally, Motion Pilot can do that in seconds. And it is so much fun to use, because all you're going to do is to move your character around using your mouse, and Cartoon Animator and Spring Bones are going to do the rest of the work. In previous versions of Cartoon Animator, the only options that we had for animating a character like this was to either apply pre-made motions, and they don't even exist for an octopus, or we could keyframe our motion. We could grab each of the individual limbs, move them into position, and then keyframe it from one position to the other. But can you imagine the amount of time and skill that that's going to take to try to get that animation done that I showed you by using keyframing? Honestly, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't have even attempted this character if it wasn't for motion piloting. Now, instead of getting bogged down with all the tedious keyframing that would be required to bring a character to life that has this many limbs, all we have to do is to select the character and open our Motion Pilot menu. Now, this character already has spring bones built into him, which I'll show you shortly, that will allow him to get a nice springy movement. So when we select Preview on our Motion Pilot, and we hit the space bar, all I need to do is move the mouse around and watch the character come to life. It's as simple as that. At this point, we're no longer even animating, we're acting. You become the character and you create the performance for them. So to start with, in the animation, all I did was to block out the movement of where the character was coming into the screen, and then where he turned. That's all I did. I blocked out all the different motions, and then you record them as you finish. So this time around, once I've worked out roughly what I want to do with the character, I hit record. This time I'd be recording, and I had the character come in and dancing around, and then he'd lean back to look at the camera, look back, and then he'd zoom into the camera. So then you can play back your animation like this. There we go. Here's the animation playback. And this is how the character moved around on screen. And now when he jumped down to the bottom and he zoomed towards the camera, I changed the parameters on my motion pilot so that at this point on the timeline, I could change how he would move. So have a look here on the transform track. You can see all the different keyframes that are in place for the octopus. At this point here, I'm going to delete all of those because I want him to come down and then stop. So now that I want the octopus from this point to zoom at the camera, I take my move controller up to 3 on the Z axis. I'll drop my X and Y down so that when I hit preview this time, as I move my mouse, he'll zoom in and out like that. Therefore, all we have to do is to record the screen and have him move forward to there. Then by going back in, we can change his position. So he's going to come down now, he's going to go, and then come in like that. We can even move those frames closer so it happens faster. He comes in, and then all I did was to start to transform where he would end up. So at this last keyframe, I knew I wanted the octopus to be here and smooshed up against the camera. So as he'd come down, and then all I had to do was to just adjust each of these keyframes along the timeline to get him exactly where I wanted him to be as he comes zooming in. So he'd come down, and you just keep playing with that until you get a smooth motion of where you want your octopus, and then I would match up the camera movement with the octopus so that at the time that he comes zooming in, we have our camera there, but then as he hits the camera, we're going to push right in on him. And that way, it looks like he comes zooming up to the camera. And here's a neat little trick. At the very end, I use the rotate feature on the camera to just rotate it just a tiny little bit, and then back into position by copying and pasting that frame back into there. So you get the nice little impact of the camera. Boom, like that. There you have it. That's how easy it is to bring to life a character using Motion Pilot. Look, honestly, the biggest problem you're going to have with Motion Pilot is trying to get any work done, because it's just too much fun to sit there and play with the character all the time. Because you're doing the acting for the character, you can approach your animation in so many different ways and do it in real time without having to think ahead of what you're going to do. Motion Pilot is the best. Now, the reason the octopus moves as well as he does is because he's rigged with a series of bones and spring bones that control his movement. Each body part has a skeletal frame. You can build your own skeleton into your characters, and then you can add your own spring bones and control exactly how they work. When we open the octopus character in Cartoon Animator's Composer mode, we can see all of the bones for his body and all of the bones for his face. I've added in extra bones to make sure that I can get a nice jelly-like bounce out of this character. Taking a look at his head first, if we open the spring bone settings, you can see I've got folders that control his ears, his head, his jaw, and his tentacles, all of which are color coordinated so that I can tell which bones that I'm working with. First of all, if we have a look at his head bones here are the settings for it. where I can control the properties of bounciness, speed, gravity, and more. Or I can use a preset for the spring as well. And the great thing about this is I can hit preview, and in real time, I can move the character around and see exactly how those spring bones are going to affect his head movement. And I can change the parameters in real time. So for instance, if we hit weighted, you'll see that all of a sudden his head acts like wet hair and it's got a heavy feel to it thanks to the use of gravity. Or we can hit light. So if you had a character that was like a puppy or a rabbit with ears, you can have those ears sticking up as well. So experiment with these on your character to see the effect that they have. If we switch over to the body, we can do the same with the tentacles. And now I can move the character around so that I can see the effect that the parameters I've set for these spring bones will have on his legs. And again, you can change all of these parameters either manually or with the presets to get different results. So again, if I hit weighted, all of a sudden, all his limbs will just hang flat and heavy. Or if I hit stretchy, then as I move him around, you're going to get a nice exaggerated stretch on those limbs. It's just a matter of playing around with the settings until you find exactly the right setting for you and your character. No matter how flexible our character is thanks to spring bones, there's still more we can do to bring our characters to life. And one of the things we can do is to give our characters a 360 head setup. You'll see with the octopus at the moment, if I pilot the octopus around, his limbs move beautiful and smooth. He looks fantastic. But the problem is his head is always looking front on. He's always looking straight ahead. And we want to try and give him a little bit more realistic head. When we open the character in composer mode and open the 360 head creator, you can see this character has a nice smooth rotation of the head. When you combine that with the flexibility of the spring bones, you suddenly get a much more realistic look for your actors. Let's say we use the motion pilot to record the movement of the octopus swimming to the left and back to the right. Here we go. So he swims over to the left and then back to the right. Just that, nothing else. Let's go back and check. Let's open up our timeline, open up our transform track. Here's all our keyframes. So our octopus is going to swim over and swim back. Can I just point out how easy is that? That animation took, 3 seconds to create. Go back and try and keyframe that and see how long it takes you. Motion pilot, brilliant. What we want to do now is to get the octopus's head to match his body motion. To do that, we're going to open up the face key editor, the morph track, and we have the gizmo here, which controls our octopus's face. We open up the timeline track for the face, open the face clip, and the head track controls the motion of the face. We have him looking in the direction that he wants to go. As he swims across, let's have him go. He'll swim across. At that point there, if we hit a V key on the head track, his head won't change position for that time. Here we go. So he'll swim across, but then we want him to change his head around to look towards us. Here we go. He'll look to us. Then hold position. Then as he swims back this way, we want his head to turn again. So he's going to come down. And then he's going to look up to go swimming this direction. So he's going to come down and up to that direction. And then we'll have him look back at the camera again. So he comes up to there, hold position, and he looks back at the camera again. And we'll tilt his head. So now, all of a sudden, what was a flat head on top of these wonderful springy bones of the legs now looks like this. He swims across, turns his head, and swims back again. And best of all, it's fun. Motion Pilot makes animating so much fun. Now that we've animated all our characters' body motion, it's time to animate the face. Using facial puppetry, we can give the character expressiveness and a range of emotions down to the finest detail. With the face tab opened, we get our head, face, and eye timelines under the facial clip. Each of these controls a different part of facial puppetry. The head controls the motion of the 360 head, the rotation. The face controls everything on the face except for the eyeballs, and the eye track controls the motion of the eyeballs. So let's, to start with, just add in our eye track. If we open up our face key editor, open the Morph tab and select the eyes, if we hold down our left mouse button and move it around, then the actor's eyes are going to move. Because he's moving forward, we're going to have his eyes looking forward. We can control them individually or we can control them at the same time. He's going to swim around like that. As he gets to here, hit V on the keyboard, and that's going to put in a keyframe on the eye track so that his eyes won't move from that position. But as he turns his head, we want him to look to camera. So select both the eyes, have the eyes move back into position, and have him looking straight down the camera lens. So he'll move around and he'll look that way. Hold position until we're ready for him to move. V key on the keyboard. As he looks down, we adjust his eyes to look down, and then he's going to hold to there, and then he's going to look up to the point where he's swimming to. We'll bring the eyes up, and then as he swims across to here, hold. He's going to turn his head back to look at the camera, so we'll pop his eyes back to the center. And this is what we end up with. Swims along, turns his eyes, and comes back again. Wonderful. Let's add in a couple of blinks, because that's going to make him a little bit more realistic. And as I always say, when we turn our head is when we turn to blink. So we'll have him swim along. At this point here, we'll have him blink. Open up your sprite editor. Find the eye track, find the eye sprites, close his eye. On the other one, close his eye. I hold that for about 4 seconds, 4 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open it back up. Open it back up. Blink. He'll turn. You can probably even extend that a little bit because the head turn is quite long, so you could take that to about 6 frames. Here we go. Look, he'll blink. Looks down. Now, as he's about to look back up again, we want him to blink again. We'll go into the blink. Hold it for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. Not seconds, frames. So we'll come down and it'll come down and off you'll go again. That's what we're left with. And then as he turns his head here, because he's going to change focus again, let's have him blink one more time. Come to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open it up. Open it up. And here's our animation. Comes along, blinks, swims back, blinks again. You control all of the parts of the face. Now, there, all we did was just change the eyes, and it made a massive difference. But you can actually get in and tinker with every individual part of the face using the detailed face settings and the deform key. Let me show you. First, let me show you the detailed settings of the face key editor. Under the Morph tab, down the bottom here, we have the detail settings. This controls the brow, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Now, at the moment, we don't have to worry about the brow, the nose, and the mouth. With this character, we only really have to worry about the eyes. Using the sliders, you can control all of the motion of your character's face. And you get lovely, smooth transitions between all of your different facial expressions. The other way you can do it is by using the deform key. With the deform key, you just simply pick which part of the face you want to work with. Say we work with the jaw, move your lattice work, and you can have the expression on his face change by deforming your face parts that way. If we select one of the body parts and find it in here, it's the left eye dark top. There we go. If we go to the deform track, for this particular item, put in a V key. When we move forward on the timeline, if we change the shape of this in some way between those two keyframes, that body part is going to transform. So that means you can get realistic, nuanced motion into your characters' faces that's going to give you a more believable performance. So you saw how we were able to use the deform tool to squash and stretch some of the individual parts of the character's face. We can do the same thing to the overall character's body using Freeform deformation, which is a tool that allows us to squash and stretch the character, creating a more dynamic performance that looks more hand-drawn. So with our actor selected and the Freeform deformation timeline open, we open up our Freeform deformation editor, and in here you'll see a lot of different presets for your character, or you can grab the lattice work on the side of your character so that you can individually move different sections of your character, which is the way I prefer to do it. What we're looking to do is to add some subtle squash and stretch to the actor's performance. As he comes up in that point there where he bobs down, if we put in a V key on the timeline so we know nothing changes, as he squashes down to there, we can exaggerate this movement by bringing him down a little bit more squashed again, and even just perhaps rotating his face. We don't want to distort the character too much, but we want to try and get some squash and stretch in there. So let's have a look. There we go. Then as he comes down, we want to hold, say to there, but then up to here, we want him to come out of it. So we'll reset all, and you'll see you'll get a lot nicer little soft squash and stretch. Nice and easy. That's all there is to it. What you want to do here is just experiment with freeform deformation. And best tip I can give you is don't overuse it. Don't over apply it. Otherwise your characters bend unrealistically. If you use it properly, you can get nice, subtle gestures into your characters. In the octopus animation, you would have seen some animated effects like the bubbles under the water and the dust billowing up off the bottom of the seabed when the octopus takes off. These were hand animated by the incredibly talented Mr. Declan Walsh, who is an ex-Disney animator who works in the 2D marketplace and sells the best, and I'll say it, the best hand-drawn animated effects that are available anywhere. So make sure you check those out, because whatever you animate, Declan's effects are going to take your animation to a whole new level with no effort on your part whatsoever. All you have to do is drag and drop the effects direct into stage mode and you're done. So make sure you check those out. So there you have it. That is my octopus character and shows you everything he can do and shows you some of the features of Cartoon Animator, from the new motion pilot, which is just the most amazing tool that we've had in a long time, to, you know, your freeform deformation, your springbone, and all the different tools that you can use to bring your character to life. But there is one tool that I didn't get to show you, and one feature that I haven't shown you yet of the octopus, and that is lip syncing. You see, I love the octopus without a mouth. I don't think he needs a mouth. I think he works brilliantly as a silent film actor. But if you want to add your own voice to the octopus and bring him to life even more.
Hey, I'm an octopus. Who would have thought?
Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.